All right, so I'm going to keep talking. This is what my screen looks like. Right now I'm still in the um, Blackboard room, the Collaborate session, but I'm just going to go and open a browser. If you guys want to do this along with me, you might be able to follow along. So I'm going to open a browser and go to the library homepage. That's just unf.edu/library. And first we're going to look at OneSearch. You have before we do that, I'll just say briefly, all of the ways that you can get in touch with the library. You might already know these, especially if you came to the freshman orientation sessions when you came into the library. So basically any way you would want to get in touch with us, you can do from the library website. Chat is only offered during the week though, not on the weekends. But if you hit the contact us, and you probably got that contact card as well, has our text number on it. If you can't remember it, just go to contact us and then hit lib answers. And then on this screen has the phone number, the text number. You can email us. It's 904-507-4122 for texting. And as long as the library is open, you should get a response within a minute or two. So one of the other things that we're going to look at during this session is a library guide. So also on the library homepage is a library guide search box that's sort of in the lower left. And you can just search in that. You can also click the search box without typing anything, and you can browse around in our guides. So let's talk about OneSearch as it relates to this family history project. Briefly going to go into the room and check and see if anybody has a question for me. Nope, no questions. All right. So OneSearch is basically a big database that we dumped the other ones into so that you can use one search interface, but you're actually able to look at almost everything we've got, whether it's physically in the library building or through an online database like journal articles and news articles. So it's kind of a good place to go, especially if you need to get some background on a topic, or it's some kind of interdisciplinary thing. So a lot of social sciences and history, while there are specific databases for those, there might be a lot, and using OneSearch can help you save time because it will show you the stuff from all of those databases, and then you might not have to go to those individually. So one of the things you can do, well, lots of things you can do. You could search a family name or a time period or a country, for example. So like if you know where your family member who first immigrated to the US came from, we might do something like that. Because I know that part of your assignment is that you have to figure out what was some of the reasons that drove them to leave their country and come to the US. So for example, let's do Germany. Actually, I did this one with somebody in one of the other honor sessions. So Germany, I think that person said his family came in like the late 1800s, but he wasn't completely sure. And he didn't quite know where from, but he thought it was the northern part. So one of the things I suggested was maybe looking at a map, especially if he didn't have anybody he could ask for a specific town, because that way you might be able to see what are some towns that are at the northern part of Germany. Of course, you can do that by Googling. That's totally fine, or however you like to find maps. So I was thinking for that particular situation that if I remembered right, the city of Dresden was in the north part. So that might be something good to check. I'm going to do Germany 1870s. See what happens. Okay, so the very first thing that I get in my search results is the German elections in the 1870s. Why Germany turned from liberalism to protectionism. And then there's another one below that that is talking about youth, American artists, Germany 1870s to 80s. So there's plenty of stuff to kind of look through here. We'll find some books or ebooks as well, especially in the European history section, because there were, in this example, there were plenty of things going on that might have driven somebody to leave Germany and immigrate somewhere else. So you can also use OneSearch to find news articles. These couple that I'm looking at now happen to be academic journals or articles from academic journals. But you can use the limiters on the left side in OneSearch to say you only want magazines, for example, or you can hit the little show more link and you'll see news. And another thing you might want to do is, especially if you want news from that time, is limit your publication date. So in this particular search, I don't have anything showing up that's actually like a news article that's actually from the time period, 1870s, that I searched. But if I did, then it should be, part of my publication date. So what it shows now is 1923 to 2016. So that's the earliest thing that was published is probably some journal article here, or maybe a magazine article from 1923. So we might want to use our news databases for this instance. So now that's actually what I'm going to go and do, is show you some other resources that you might want to use besides the OneSearch or other library databases. So briefly before I do that, let me check back in with our thing here. I should change the words there. We do have sound right now. We do have sound, but no picture. Because it's not working right. All right, so I know a couple people came into the room while I was already talking. What we're doing is I am recording my screen. I'm going to post the video for you guys because the Blackboard Collaborate isn't working right. So you guys can't see what I'm doing. But I'm talking you through it right now in case you want to know. Okay, so back to our searching. So I'm going to go back to the library website. And so remember how I mentioned that there was a guide we were going to look at? So I'm going to scroll down to that box and just search family, because it's a family. The actual name of it is Researching Family History, but since family is part of the title, it's easily found by just searching family. So then I will click the link for that guide. The front page here is just kind of a welcome. The second page is called Sources Personal. So this gives you some ideas of where you might find the information that you need in order to actually start getting some resources from databases or wherever. So you do need to know some information from about your family member or family members who immigrated. So places you can go to get that information obviously is interviews with your family members. So if the person who actually immigrated is still living, they are a super great resource because they have the firsthand knowledge. But if they're not, then try your parents, any grandparents or other relatives who are still around who might have information for you. You might be aware of some family photos or letters that are kind of like hidden away in a trunk or in an attic someplace. Those can be good things to look at to get information about what people, what was going on in their minds, like what led them to take the actions that they did. So then the third tab on the guide is sources published, unpublished, and online. So these are some places that you can look to find information that maybe you couldn't get from your relatives, or you did, but you didn't have enough information, so you needed to verify it. So I mentioned newspapers. Newspaper notices are a great place to find stuff. So all kinds of things were and still are announced in newspapers, engagements, people selling or buying property or land, marriages, births, deaths, anything of interest that might have been going on, including, actual news stories, local news happening. The United States has not been around all that long, obviously, as a country. And even before that, we weren't all that, old as a colony before we decided to become our own country. So there aren't too many newspapers that are before the 1700s. So if you have somebody who came before that, you might maybe be a little bit tougher, but doesn't mean you can't find it. Also, cemetery records and grave markers are a great thing to look up. There are some links here on the next page for some places that you can go to find cemetery information or grave marker information. Of course, census records. We do have a link to that too. Military records too. These are all the census and the military records, and birth and death certificates and marriage licenses are all public documents. They may not all be completely available online, but usually you can at least figure out that something exists and then maybe request a copy of it, whether it's through a church or synagogue or something like that, or a local government office might be able to do that for you. And then sometimes there are published genealogies, especially if a town or a local area has a big population of a certain group, Germans, for example. Somebody may have constructed a genealogy of the people from that town, especially the ones who founded it. And a lot of times those things are available online, or maybe they were published and are available in a library somewhere. And we can help you look for that kind of stuff if you can't find it yourself. So moving to the last tab, this is where we have some links to some specific resources, some that I mentioned, some that I didn't. And we also tell you whether or not you can access them free or what you need to do to access them. So you probably are aware of Ancestry.com. Let me check in and see if we've got any questions. Nope, we're okay. So Ancestry.com is a subscription service, although they do offer a free trial. I'm not sure how long it is. In the past, it's been 2 weeks, but I think it might only be 1 week now. But you can also access a bunch of Ancestry by going to the Jacksonville Public Library location, like actually going into the library. They have the Ancestry Library Edition there, and you don't have to have a library card. You can just go in and use a computer there and access it. And then there's several other links here. Some of them are government, that archives.org is a government organization, the federal government, so they keep the archives. Newspapers, there's some links to some of the American newspaper databases that we have. Access World News only goes back to about the 80s, but if you need earlier newspapers, the early American newspapers is a good place to go. It's primarily 1800s, but it does have some late 1700s and then all the way up to early 1900s stuff. And those are free to access from the UNF library, and you can use those links there. They will allow you to connect with your UNNumber and password. So here's one of those cemetery records websites I mentioned. Sometimes Googling is good. If you want to search names, it's a great tip for searching names by Googling is to put the name in quotation marks. So it doesn't help 100% because you could still have the last name next to somebody else's first name, for example, or first name, last name, but it definitely helps. I've done it to myself or, people that I went to school with that I was looking for, and it usually is pretty good. And then lastly on this list, we've got some of the branches of the Jacksonville Public Library that have genealogy research and researchers in them. So you might want to go and visit those people or just give them a call. So I'm about to run out of time on my video, but I've got through all of the stuff that I wanted to tell you guys. So does anybody have any questions?